Ferrari is about to unleash the one upgrade that could instantly erase their biggest weakness, and it might happen at Canada. We're talking about a deficit of up to 50 horsepower, the exact reason Hamilton and Leclerc have been losing races on the straights, now potentially gone. And here's what makes this explosive. This wasn't supposed to arrive yet. This was expected later in the season, which means Ferrari isn't just improving, they're accelerating their comeback. And if this upgrade delivers even half of what they expect, the Ferrari you've seen struggling so far won't be the Ferrari that shows up next. At the start of the season, Ferrari didn't look like a team in crisis. That's what made everything so confusing, because through the corners, the SF26 looked sharp, balanced, fast, sometimes even matching the leaders in most technical parts of the track. But then came the straights, and everything changed. Suddenly, that strong lap started falling apart. Speed dropped, time was lost, and rivals didn't need to fight hard, they just drove past. Again and again, race after race. And for Hamilton and Leclerc, it created a very specific kind of frustration, because they knew the car had pace. They could feel it, they could extract it in sectors, but they couldn't carry it across the full lap, because the problem wasn't in their hands, it was in the engine. And that's what made this limitation so brutal. Because in Formula One, there are things a driver can fix, and things they can't. You can brake later, you can risk more, you can push the tires beyond the limit, but you cannot create horsepower that doesn't exist. And that's why Ferrari's races follow the same pattern every single weekend. Strong in the beginning, competitive in the middle, then slowly fading, overtaken on straights, forced to defend, forced to compromise, and by the end managing the damage instead of chasing the win. But here's where everything connects, because this wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. Ferrari sacrificed power to gain efficiency, a strategic gamble. The idea was to build a cleaner, more aerodynamic car, one that could maximize energy usage over long distances. And in theory, it should have worked, but in reality, it exposed them, because while Ferrari optimized one area, their rivals optimized everything, power and efficiency, and that left Ferrari with a weakness too big to hide. But now that exact weakness is being targeted directly, not with small upgrades, not with minor adjustments, with something much bigger, the ADUO. And that's why this moment feels different, because for the first time this season, Ferrari isn't trying to manage the problem, they're about to eliminate it. And if that happens, then everything we've seen so far was just the beginning of a completely different story. And this is where the situation stops being a weakness and starts becoming a turning point. Because once that power begins to come back, everything Ferrari built before suddenly makes sense. All that efficiency, all that stability through corners, all that control over long runs, it was never the problem. It was the missing piece. And now that piece is finally arriving. Because think about it. If you take a car that is already strong in the technical sections and you remove its biggest limitation, you don't just improve it, you unlock it. The corners stay competitive, but the straights stop being a liability. And that's where lap time returns. Not in one area, across the entire lap. But here's where it becomes even more dangerous, because this doesn't just change qualifying, it transforms the race. Up to now, Ferrari has been forced into defensive mode, protecting position, managing gaps, hoping to survive the straights. But with more power, that entire mindset flips. They no longer wait. They attack. They dictate. They choose when to push and when to control. And that's when drivers like Hamilton and Leclerc become truly threatening. Because once they trust the car in every phase, they stop holding back. They take risks. They create overtakes. They control races. But here's the part that nobody can ignore. Because adding power also changes everything else. Energy deployment shifts. Tire behavior changes. Balance evolves. And if those elements are not perfectly aligned, the gain can turn unstable. And that's the real challenge Ferrari now faces. Not just unlocking performance, but controlling it. Because bringing this upgrade earlier than expected means one thing: less time to fully understand it, less time to refine it, less margin for error. And in Formula One, small errors become big problems. But if they get it right, if everything aligns, then something very important happens. Ferrari stops chasing and starts leading, because suddenly they're not the team with a known weakness. They become unpredictable, complete, dangerous on every type of circuit, and that changes the entire championship dynamic. because now the teams ahead can't rely on Ferrari's limitations anymore. They have to face them at full strength. And that's when pressure shifts, because being hunted is very different from being safe. But here's the final layer that defines everything. Timing, because it's not just about having more power. It's about when that power arrives. If it comes at the right moment, if it aligns with the second half of the season, then Ferrari doesn't just improve, they surge. And in Formula One, a surge at the right time is more powerful than consistency at the start, because championships are not remembered for who was good early. They're decided by who becomes unstoppable at the end. And now we reach the moment that could define the entire season, because once Ferrari introduces that power, there's no more hiding, no more explanations, no more limitations to point at. From that point forward, the car has to deliver. And that's where the real pressure begins. Because up to now, Ferrari had a clear excuse. The engine, the straight line deficit, the missing horsepower that everyone could see. But once that disappears, everything changes. Now the focus shifts completely. To execution, to strategy, to the drivers. Because when the car becomes complete, every result becomes a statement. And every mistake becomes impossible to hide. But here's where it becomes even more intense. Because this upgrade doesn't arrive in isolation. It arrives in the middle of a championship fight, where gaps already exist, where rivals already have momentum, where every point matters more than ever. And that creates a very specific scenario. Ferrari won't just be improving, they'll be interrupting the flow of the season, breaking the rhythm that other teams have built. And that's where chaos begins, because teams ahead are not expecting Ferrari at full strength this early. They've been racing with a known advantage, planning around it, using it. Now, that advantage could disappear overnight. And when that happens, strategies collapse, expectations fail, and mistakes appear. But here's the part that defines everything. Because this is not just about catching up. It's about what Ferrari does once they get there. Do they execute perfectly? Do they maximize every opportunity? Do they turn performance into results? Because in Formula One, speed alone is never enough. You need precision, consistency, control under pressure. And that's where Hamilton and Leclerc become the center of everything. Because with a complete car, they have no limits, only expectations. And that's when the real battle begins. Not just against rivals, but against the moment itself. Because this upgrade creates a window. A narrow window where everything can change. Where Ferrari can go from chasing to leading, from reacting to controlling. But that window doesn't stay open forever. Because rivals will respond. They will adapt. They will bring their own upgrades. And the balance will shift again. So this is Ferrari's moment. Their opportunity to strike, to build momentum, to take control of the narrative. And that leads to the final truth. This isn't just an upgrade. It's a test of whether Ferrari can transform potential into dominance. Because if they get it right, the second half of the season won't be a fight. It will be a takeover. But if they get it wrong, then this moment, this opportunity, will be remembered as the one that slipped away. And this is where everything finally comes together. Because what happens next doesn't just depend on the upgrade. It depends on how Ferrari uses it. Because getting the power back is only the beginning. Turning that power into wins is something completely different. Because we've already seen this team bring upgrades before. We've already seen big packages arrive with big expectations. And we've already seen those expectations fall apart under pressure. Miami proved that. The biggest upgrade package of the season, and one of the most disappointing results. Which means one thing: performance alone doesn't guarantee success. Execution does. And that's where the Real Challenge begins. Because now, Ferrari has to get everything right at the same time. The car, the setup, the strategy, the communication. No delays, no confusion, no hesitation. Because when you finally remove your biggest weakness, every other weakness becomes visible. And that's what makes this moment so critical. Because this isn't just about catching up anymore. It's about proving they belong at the front. But here's where the story becomes even more intense. Because while Ferrari prepares to unlock this new level of performance, their rivals are watching, analyzing, preparing their response. Because in Formula One, no advantage lasts forever. If Ferrari gains power, others will look for new ways to fight back. Better strategies, better tire management, more efficient setups. And that means one thing: even if Ferrari closes the gap, the fight doesn't end. It evolves. And that's where the final battle begins. Because now, it's no longer about who has the better car. It's about who adapts faster, who makes fewer mistakes, who handles pressure better when everything is on the line. And that's why this moment is bigger than it looks. Because this upgrade doesn't just give Ferrari a chance to compete. It forces them into a position they haven't been in all season. Expectation. Real expectation. The kind that demands results immediately. And that leads to the final truth. This isn't just Ferrari getting stronger. This is Ferrari being tested. Tested under pressure. Tested under expectation. Tested in the exact moment where everything can change. Because if they deliver, if they turn this upgrade into victories, then this season won't be remembered for their struggles. It will be remembered for their comeback. But if they don't, if mistakes continue, if opportunities are missed, then this moment, this exact moment, will be remembered as the point where everything was in their hands, and they let it slip away.